Welcome to Click with Confidence. I'm Rico, also known as the old guy in a chair. And this channel is for people in their 50s and beyond who still have questions, opinions, and plenty of life left to live. We're going to talk about technology, discuss it, and explain it in simple, easy to understand language. No judgments or complicated jargon here. Just practical information from an old guy sitting in a chair. So, today's topic is me. Who am I and why the hell should you listen to anything I have to say? Well, let's start off with the fact that first, I'm basically a lazy person. And what I mean by that is I hate having to do the same thing 10 times over to figure out the best and most efficient way to accomplish that task. So when I figure something out, I'm going to stick with that solution right up until the time I learn more about it and find an even better way to do it. So I'm teachable. Anyway, who am I? Not in the deep philosophical sense of staring off into space and finding out the answer to life is 42. I mean, in the practical version. I'm in my mid 60s, not allowed to retire because, as my wife says, she doesn't want to spend our retirement money on bail and a good defense lawyer defending her against my murder, right? Anyway, I spent more than 30 years working in the IT field. I have almost every certification a person could ever want. Before that, I spent about 15 years in the restaurant business, starting in junior high and going all the way through college and well beyond. But between restaurants and computers, I spent most of my life listening to people's problems, offering advice if they asked for it, and sometimes even solving their problems. I mean, who knew, right? And, most importantly, I have learned how to explain complicated things in a way that normal, everyday people can understand. I've also spent a fair amount of time wondering why my car seems to be possessed by my late mother's spirit, but that's entirely different. Um, in these videos, we'll talk about like phones and apps and passwords and artificial intelligence and all the things that are supposed to make our life easier, right up until they ask you for a password you created in 2009. But, this channel is still about more than just technology. It's about everyday life. I mean, it's for people who have realized that the world keeps changing whether or not we approve of it, right? Maybe you're retired, maybe you're semi-retired, maybe you're still working because, groceries these days require financing apparently. Wherever you are in life, this channel is for people who want clear answers, um, useful information, and don't want to be talked down to. We're going to cover all the little problems and address them, hopefully, before they become big problems. And of course, we're going to cover the eternal question of what's for dinner. Now, I'm not here to impress you with fancy language or bury you in technical jargon. And I'm definitely not going to pretend like I know everything because I don't. Nobody does. And anybody who says otherwise has a browser history full of searches beginning with, how do I? Okay? What I do have is a lifetime of curiosity. My favorite question is, why? And it's also followed closely by, how do I? My family jokingly calls this Rico's Book of Knowledge. I call it a lot of trial and error and learning the hard way sometimes. A fair amount of stubbornness, and more than a few moments in my life of saying, well, shit, that wasn't supposed to happen. Sometimes we'll figure out how to use a new phone or why every website suddenly wants a security code. Other times we'll discuss why people treat technology as if it's lava or possessed and how to use it to our benefit because we all like things that benefit us, right? I'll do my best to make these videos useful and honest and occasionally entertaining. But this is where you come in. And here's my challenge to you. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover, ask me about it. Leave a comment, send me an email, and I'll do my best to get you a useful answer. So, in a nutshell, that's who I am. I'm Rico. I'm still learning how to make YouTube videos. I'm sure I'll be looking at the wrong place on the camera a lot of times. I'm going to stumble over a lot of words, but that's just me. I'm just an old guy in a chair. So why don't you go grab a drink, pull up your own chair, and let's learn something together. And as always, please like, subscribe, and share. And I appreciate you stopping by, my friends. Thanks.